welcome to Party Animal Quilting. Tonight I'm going to be working on the next step in my Kansas City, Kansas quilt. This is a test for a larger quilt. I was testing the border applique pattern to see if I liked it, and I do. But while I have the test, I decided I would quilt it to really make a test. Whenever I'm doing a large, intricate, complicated project that will be a bear to take out, I do a small test like this. So today I'm going to be doing some really fine quilting around the applique circles. In previous episodes, I've worked on the ribbon candy in the contrasting color, it's called Stone, and in navy blue here. This week, I wanted to stitch down in between the two rows of ribbon candy. I have hand appliqued these circles and hand stitched this green metallic line using a green thread called Glamour. It is a 12 weight metallic thread and I hand stitched it just on the top. I'm using this as the spine and I do want to quilt feathers all the way along this, interrupted by the circles. The question I have though is, what color thread should I use? There are multiple battings in this quilt, and with multiple battings I can usually get some good loft. I can let the batting help show the quilting, but the batting can help show the quilting when it's on a lightly colored fabric, because what it shows is the shadow cast by the puffed up quilting. This navy blue fabric is just going to accept the thread. So if I stitch in navy blue, which would be a nice background color, it would blend in well. It's the color I've been using for the bobbins whenever I've been stitching in this navy blue thread. That would be great, except I'm not sure that it'll show. My other choice is to bring in this lime green. This is Invisifil. It's a 100 weight polyester instead of this 80 weight polyester. And believe it or not, I use these almost interchangeably. I don't use Invisifil in the bobbin, I do use the 80 weight, but when it comes to top thread, the 80 weight and the 100 weight don't make that much difference to me, so I go by color. There is not a lime green in the Deco Bob line, so I went for Invisifil. So I think the lime green could be good in here, but I want to make sure that it's not too loud and not too distracting. So this is a test for my larger quilt, and I stitched a test for my test. I drew with chalk a line with some circles on it and some edging. I stitched it in navy blue over here, and I stitched it in the lime green over here. And I was right. The navy blue just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything. So I think I'm going to use, well actually I know I'm going to use the 100 weight Invisifil lime green. I have an online class called Thread, Needles, Batting, and Tension under the Quilting Essentials. In there I have a thread chart that tells you which needles to use with which thread. With this 100 weight thread, I'm going to use either a size 60 microtex needle or a 70 top stitch needle. Both would be fine. I just like a small needle with a nice large eye that's not going to leave too big of a hole in the quilt because this is a very fine thread. When I first learned how to stitch feathers 20 some years ago, I made a decision that all of my feathers go clockwise. So stitching clockwise around this quilt means I'm going to stitch in this direction. It's convenient because that is the direction that has a little bit of fabric inside the machine and the rest of the quilt outside of the machine. It's not always the case. And I'm going to use this as my pre-marked spine, so I don't have to mark anything, I don't have to do anything. I can simply stitch feathers. Now, feathers are not simple. Please don't think I said that. Once you learn feathers and are competent and comfortable stitching them, then you can just go stitch feathers. I'm teaching a Quilting Essentials Feathers class online starting in January at debbybrownquilts.com, but today I'm just going to stitch what I call a floppy feather because I want to go from the spine all the way out to the echoed line. I think I'll start here so we can see better what I'm doing. I have an 80 weight Deco Bob light green thread in the bobbin. And I'm just going to pull it up here. And on the spool they look very different, but together they look nearly the same color. The joy of using thin threads. My goal when stitching this is to stitch all of the blue fabric down so that these circles pop off the quilt. Again, I have multiple battings in here. When I quilt on multiple battings, they quilt down flat, but where it's not quilted should pop up. And when I do that, I'm going to need to stitch around these circles. And I'm going to be doing that while I'm stitching the feathers. So I am stitching a curve, stitching a loop, like a half circle around the edge, and then coming back down to the spine. So I'm stitching up a ski slope, around a half circle, and then holding a curve back to the line. And I'm going to do that again. I can repeat that whenever there's a straightaway. It's whenever there's a curve that I'm going to get to change that up. So I'm stitching one feather at a time and laying one on top of the next. Now here I have all of this room, that is the spine, and only this much room for the feathers. So I'm going to have to make some short feathers. And here is where I'm going to stitch around that circle. Just while I stitch each feather, I'm bringing it back along the circle, giving me that stitch in the ditch look. Did you think using a 100-weight thread could just work this beautifully in your machine? Because it's not giving me any grief at all. And I think that's popping up nicely on that side. Let's see how it's going. I'm going to come stitch along in the ditch. Just do the whole ditch while I'm at it here. Looks like I need to lift that foot up a little bit. See if I can raise that foot up a skosh. Maybe lower it a little. That was getting a little bouncy. I have trouble waiting for long-term gratification, so I'm going to turn it now and take a look at it. So how's this looking? I'm pretty pleased with it. A real critique, I'd like to get that stitching a little closer to the circle there, but I do like the feathers around there, and it seems to be making those circles pop up nicely. So I am going to keep going. The joy of using multiple battings is it can cause a little extra loft. On a long arm, you're holding the quilt under tension and it can keep that loft down. But if I notice that I'm pushing any of that extra loft and it's causing the top to pucker a little bit, I make sure that I stretch it out, work it out. Got some skip stitches there, which I think was because my foot was raised up. So I am going to stop, pick those out. And the cool thing about knots and thread that's this thin is I can make a machine quilting knot. I don't have to worry about hand tying anything. Let me just pick out a couple stitches. I have these little, these are new scissors for Handy Quilter that have these tiny little points that are great for seam rippers. There we go. You can see what I mean when I got this long stitch here. It means the needle was going up and down, but it didn't make any stitches. Something was holding the needle back from actually catching the hook. So here I am. Let me pull up the bobbin thread there. So that should be it. I can just go in and start again. Wait, there's more thread to cut. So what I'm going to do is stitch over the last stitch that I left in and make a tack stitch over top of it. It will hold the old stitching and it will hold the new stitching in place. So pull up that bobbin thread. Just a couple small stitches. Now I'm not quilting this quilt for a show, I'm quilting this quilt for me. It's going on my living room wall in my newly rebuilt house. My house was destroyed by a tree in late 2019. So I have the perfect wall for this and no tree standing outside of it. I want it to be good, but what's nice is I want to enjoy it. I don't have to worry about every stitch being perfect, perfect, perfect. And by the way, this quilt isn't going to go on the wall. The big version of this is. Stitch in the ditch. I might have to go get my quilting glasses. I have a pair of glasses made specifically for the distance from my eye to the needle because I'm having trouble with my trifocals here. And I don't want to get my my body and my hair in between the camera and the needle, so I think I might have to go get my other glasses. Did I run out of bobbin? Yes, I did. I'm going to pick those stitches back to the beginning of that feather and wind a new bobbin. And I'll restart. Those threads out of here. I did have this feather stitch over that bit of echoing, and on my real quilt I would take it out. On this one I'll probably leave it. Nope, I'm going to take it out. That was fun. Let's see how that looks. I think it's going to make a huge difference when I quilt the other side of this, to see that these circles are going to just pop up the way I want them to. I'm still not sure about that double stitching around each of the circles. I may choose not to do that on the real quilt, but on this one, I'm going to continue to do it to give it a uniform look. And I'm going to leave it in because I am not, no matter what, I am not picking out all of these little stitches. So let me go up to the top and stitch the other side of this feather. I am pleased. I'm glad I chose the green because the blue wouldn't have shown up at all, as you can see here with the blue ribbon candy. Now, it is making, by quilting all of these feathers down, 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 the batting is popping up under the circles and they're just jumping off the quilt. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Now I have 3 more lines of feathers to do because I'm going to do another line coming down here, and then this is a continuous line in here and back down. So I'm just going to keep on quilting. After I finished stitching the first half of this row of feathers, I stopped stitching around those circles at all, and I didn't see an appreciable difference. So I'm very excited to learn that I don't have to do any of that double stitching on my big quilt, on my Kansas City, Missouri quilt. So I'm leaving it again. That's what a test is for, that 3/4 of the circles in the borders have circles around them and 1/4 don't. But I'm pleased. I'm going to hang this up. Let's take a look at it. And then I can start thinking about what to add next. I like how this turned out. I like the lessons I learned while quilting this, and I really like the way the lime green extra fine thread, the 100-weight Invisifil thread, appears almost golden against the metallic glamour thread. So I think it really adds to the glitz and glamour of this scrap quilt. I can't wait to work on more background quilting next week. Hi, I'm Debbie Brown with DebbieBrownQuilts.com, and I'm inviting you to join me on a scrap quilting adventure. Go to DebbieBrownQuilts.com, sign up for the Color Blocks Quilt Along. Each month of 2021, I will release a different scrap quilt pattern, but it's not too early to sign up now. Soon I'll be posting information on how to dig into your scraps, cut them up, and prepare for our 2021 adventure. While you're visiting DebbieBrownQuilts.com, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter so you don't miss any other quilty news.